Blissful morning, children. Welcome back to our social class. So, children, we have completed up till chapter number 5 in history, right? So, we all have an introduction about the Delhi Sultanate. So, in this class, we are going to discuss about life in the Sultanate period. Okay, now shall we start the lesson? So, Suren, the Delhi Sultanate marked the beginning of the new chapter in the history of India, and external influences combined with the traditional Indian culture shaped the society, religion, and art during this period. So, first, we are going to discuss about the society which prevailed during the Sultanate period. So, first about the society. So, there were four social groups in the Sultanate period. So, they were aristocracy, priests, townspeople, and peasants. So, first under aristocracy. So, it was the ruling class and hence very powerful. We say aristocrats, isn't it? So, they are learned people. So, it consisted of Sultan, his family members, the nobles, the Hindu princes, and the landholders. And the Sultan was the center of power. And the Katuba, which means sermon, was read in his name to acknowledge his position and power in the state. Okay, so that is about the first ruling class, aristocracy. And the next one is priest. The Brahmins among the Hindus and the ulema among the Muslims looked after the religious matters and they advised the Sultan on important religious issues. Issues here means problems. So both the Hindus and the Muslims helped the Sultan in resolving the problems. And the third one is about the townspeople or the town dwellers. So, merchants, traders, and artisans lived in towns. So, the goods made by the artisans and craftsmen were sold both within and outside the country. So, by it, they earned their income. Next is the peasants. Peasants are home children. Yes, they are farmers. So they lived in villages and they had to pay many taxes. And most peasants were very poor and they struggled to make their ends meet. That means they were struggling to earn their livelihood. And a change of rulers or dynasties had little effect on their lifestyle. And the caste system that prevailed among the Hindus was extremely rigid. And practices such as child marriage, sati. What is sati? Is when husband and wife are there, when husband has died, what they will do, the olden days they used to push the women, when the husband has died, they will be pushing her into the burning fire. You just imagine how cruel it is. Okay, that is sati and purda and taboo on widow remarriage continued. And those days, girls were denied education. Okay, and they did not want girls to go out and learn. Always they have to be inside the house only doing household work. So next we are going to discuss about the nobility. So the nobles were a very powerful group and most of the nobles were Turkish or Afghan people. So they held important positions and some were governors and others were military commanders. And the nobles were granted land for their services and this process is called ikta. Okay, and the practice of giving grants of land came to be known as iktadari system. What we have to say? The process of giving grants of land is known as iktadari system and the nobles who received the iktas were called as iktadars. Okay, children. So they collected taxes from the farmers living on their hectares. So they used this money to maintain their lifestyles and also pay salaries to the soldiers under them. And in return, the iktadars supplied troops to the sultan whenever the need arose. So, when the Sultan's rule weakened, most of these iqtadars behaved like independent rulers. So, the next is about trade. Trade was an important activity and internal and external trade was carried on from Delhi, Lahore, Lucknow, Daulatabad and several other places. And every town had a market where goods coming from near and far were brought and sold. And the Banyas and the Multanis were the two communities involved in trade, and foreign trade also flourished, and India traded with China, the Malay Islands, and West and Central Asia and East Africa. And the exports from India included fine textiles, handicrafts, and spices. And the sultans of Delhi encouraged trade, and they built roads, popularized the use of money, and standardized weights and measures. And the Sultan Iltutmish started the minting of the silver called as the tanka. So the next one is about the administration and the ministers. So first about the court. The Sultan was all powerful and his court was very ceremonial, and Sista and Paibos were performed before him. So in the last chapter itself we have learned what is this Sista and Paibos. Sista is, yes, stretching out on the ground with one's forehead touching the ground. So it was done before the Sultan to acknowledge his supremacy. And what is Paibos? The Persian custom of kissing the feet of the Sultan. Okay, so the Sultan sat on the throne built on a raised platform, and princes, ministers, heads of different departments, and ambassadors from different countries were assigned fixed places to stand, and the scribes recorded the orders of the Sultan. And next, about the department. The Sultan was the head of the administration, and there were four departments or the pillars of the empire. So, first one is Diwani-e Wizarat, who's considered or who's concerned with finance. And next one is Diwan-e-Risalat, concerned with religious matters. And third one is Diwan-e-Ars, concerned with the military matters. And the last one is Diwan-e-Insha, concerned with the royal correspondence. And now about the ministers. The Sultan selected nobles to head the different departments of the state, and the Wazir was the prime minister, and he supervised the work of all the officials, kept a record of revenue and expenditure, and appointed people to the important posts. And the Qasi was the chief judge and the Sultan's advisor on religious issues. The Bakshi was the paymaster of the army. And the noble who held the overall charge of the army was called as Aris-e Malik, and he and his officers recruited, equipped, and trained soldiers. So the next one is about religion. So two religious trends became popular during the Sultanate period, and they were the Bhakti and the Safi movements. Okay, so what is this Bhakti? Bhakti means devotion. Okay, Bhakti means devotion. And the teachers or saints of Bhakti composed hymns and sang bhajans glorifying God. And how did this Sufi movement arise? To bridge the difference between the two sects of Islam, that is Sunni Muslims and Shia Muslims, and to uphold the Islamic concept of universal brotherhood and equality all. And this Sufi movement was introduced. Okay, so we'll be learning in detail in lesson number 11. So next is about the cultural developments, and the first one is architecture. The Turks and the Afghans introduced new styles and techniques of architecture, and when fused with the existing Indian styles, they give birth to the Indo-Islamic style of architecture. And palaces, mosques, forts, and towers were constructed in the new style. And the two main factors used in the building of this period were the arch, later refined, and it is called as the true arch, and the dome. So they were no longer the need to construct pillars to support the roof, and some buildings also used the minaret. And most early structures were of red sandstone, and later monuments were made of stone covered with plaster, and they were decorated with floral and geometric designs. And verses from the Holy Quran were also engraved on some. And in many structures, motifs such as swastika, lotus, and bell were used. And the slave and the Khalji sultans had more money to spend on architecture. Therefore, their buildings have more decorative carvings on them, and those built by Tughlaq Saids and the Lodis. Okay, so since they were having more money, they spent money in architecture. So the next one is about the monuments. So the Delhi Sultans built many monuments, and Qutbuddin Aibak built the Quwat ul Islam Mosque in Delhi and the Alauddin Ka Jaunpura in Ajmer. So the Quwat ul Islam Mosque was built in year 1193, was the first mosque to be raised in India by a ruling dynasty, and it was not just a symbol of the might of Islam but also the might of a new political authority. And Anaydinka Jodhpur is said to have been built in 2.5 days. Just imagine. And Qutbuddin Aibak also started the construction of the Qutub Minar and built the first story. And Iltutmish added three more stories to the Qutub Minar and is a masterpiece of the Indo-Islamic architecture. And it is 72.5 meters high and largely built of red sandstone and with some white marble has also been used. And the mina is richly ornamented with calligraphic inscriptions and carvings, and it was named after the famous Sisti saint Sheikh Qutbuddin Bakhtiar Khaki. And Qutub Minar is a UNESCO's World Heritage Site. You have to underline it in your textbook. And Alauddin Khilji also took a keen interest in architecture. He built the Ali Darwaza next to the Qutub Minar. So it is made of red sandstone. And the Ali Minar is an unfinished structure near Qutub Minar and is also said to have been built by Alauddin Khilji. And the monuments of the Tughlaq Sayyid and the Lodi period include the Tughlaqabad Fort, the Firoz Shah Kotla, the Bara Gumbad and the Shish Gumbad, the tombs of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, Firoz Shah Tughlaq, Muhammad Shah Sayyid and Sikandar Lodi, the Kirki Masjid, the Begumpuri Masjid, Jamali Kamali Masjid, Motkhi Masjid, numerous Baolis and many more structures in and around Delhi. So our next topic is monuments in the regional kingdoms. So the Indo-Islamic style of architecture influenced the regional kingdoms as well. And Ahmad Shah of Gujarat founded Ahmedabad and decorated it with grand structures. And the most famous among them is the Jami Masjid and the Sidi Said Mosque, and the latter being famous for the beautifully carved Jali screens. And the rulers of the Malwa built numerous structures in the Mandu. And some of these are the Jama Masjid, the Hindula Mahal, and the Asharfi Mahal and the Jahis Mahal and the tomb of Hujang Shah. And the Adina Masjid in Pandua and the Dakil Darwaza in Gaur are the most impressive monuments of Ilyas Shahi and Hussain Shahi rulers of Bengal. And in Jaunpur, Ibrahim Shah Shorki built the Atala Masjid. Okay, we'll be learning in lesson number 7. Yes, the next part is about language, painting, music, and about the regional kingdoms. So, first about language. So, modern Indo-Aryan languages started emerging in the 9th and the 10th centuries, and Odia and Bengali in the east, and Marathi in the west, and Hindi and later languages in the central India started coming up around this time, and they developed from Prakrit, which in turn had developed from Sanskrit. And the two forms of Hindi, Braj and Awadhi, became popular, and Punjabi and Sindhi also grew in importance. And other regional languages that developed were Assamese, Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam and Tamil. The Puranas, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata came to be translated in different regional languages, and the Turks introduced Persian in India, and it became the language of administration. And much later, Persian and Hindi fused to give birth to a new language called Urdu, and Urdu means camp. So it was called as a camp language because it evolved and developed in the camps of the soldiers. And Urdu developed as a link language which was spoken and understood by all during the Sultanate period. Next is literature. So the literature of the period consisted of translations as well as original works, and many Sanskrit works were translated into regional languages as well as into Persian and Arabic. And the famous original works include that of Amir Khusraw in Persian and Srinidhar's Haravlaza in Telugu, and Malik Muhammad's Jayasi Padmavat in Awadhi, and the poems of Vidyapati in Maithili. Next, about a beautiful topic, painting. So painting was an important art form during the medieval period, and palaces and temples were decorated with murals. What are murals? Yes, mural is nothing but a painting, and kings and other rich people patronized painters, and from the Sultanate period onwards, painting depended entirely on the royal patronage. And art of painting miniatures means small detailed painting, began to develop during this period, and kings and nobles employed artists to decorate and illustrate books, and the court painters made portraits of the rulers. And next is music. So with the coming of the Turks, music prospered, and there was a fusion of Persian, Arabic and
Indian musical forms, resulting in the creation of a new style of music. And next is about the Sultanate period. So the Turks introduced new musical instruments such as the rabab and the sarangi. And Amir Khusrau was a famous poet, poet and musician. So he combined Persian and Indian melodies, introduced several new ragas. You all know what are ragas, isn't it? So he also popularized a new form of music called Qawwali. So he was a friend and disciple of Khwaja Hasrat Nizamuddin Aluya and participated in musical gatherings at his handcuff. So Firoz Shah Tukla was a patron of music, and the musical work of Rag Darpan was translated into Persian during his reign. Lajhat-e Sikandar Shahi, a work on different forms of music, was written during the region of Sikandar Lodi. So the last topic will be devotional music and the regional kingdoms. So the Bhakti and the Sufi scenes popularized group singing, and the Sufis organized musical gatherings with both the commoners and the skilled musicians participated. And the Bhakti saints also used devotional music to spread their message. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Mirabai expressed their Bhakti through the devotional songs. And Mardana, a disciple of Guru Nanak, also popularized devotional singing. And about the regional kingdoms. The rulers of Jaunpur and Gwalior were great patrons of music, and two works on music, Bunyal ul Munyaz and Sangeet Siromani, were compiled in Jaunpur. And Sultan Hussain Shah Sharki of Jaunpur took great interest in music, and he is believed to have created many new ragas. And Raja Mansingh Tomar of Gwalior was also fond of music, and he wrote a book on music, Man Katohal, Curiosities of Rajman. So, a distinctive style of music developed in the kingdom of Kashmir, and music also prospered in Gujarat and Malwa. Thus, the period of the Delhi Sultanate witnessed the development of a composite culture in India, and this trend was replicated in the regional kingdoms and emerged during this period.
So, children, in this lesson, we have discussed about the society, administration, and about the culture of the Sultanate period. And under culture, we discussed about the architecture, language and literature, painting, and about music. Okay, children. So now I want you all to write your classwork neatly with legible handwriting. Okay, children. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Take care, children.